Okay, it has been quite the week in the land of GAA politics. It started on Off the Ball on Monday night when Michael Dignan said that he thought teams that were caught training should be thrown out of the championship. He did say he didn't want that to be the headline, but a lot of people took the story and decided that actually, you know what, here is somebody who is very impassioned, who's a county board chairman, who thinks that if everybody's not in the same playing field, then serious repercussions should follow for those teams. And here on Friday, the GAA have told a meeting of county board chairman that there will now be sanctions applied to teams who are caught training before the 14th of September, which is the date when inter-county teams are supposed to go back training. To talk about this and try and make some sense of exactly what's happened this week and the implications of it, I'm delighted to say we've got Mike Quirke, the manager of the Laois footballers, with us. Mike, good afternoon to you. How are you?
Afternoon, Ger. Good.
Now, so you had a brilliant column during the week where you were saying that if you know, one of the things that you were doing was actually going and working with the club managers and the strength and conditioning people in the club, so you could give your expertise to them and spread the wealth of information and knowledge. And that seems like I know a couple of other counties are doing that as well. And that was a really good idea. But you also said that you thought that if anybody had evidence of teams who were actually training, that they should publish that. And I think that's kind of what's happened today, is the GAA are calling on anybody who has any information to make that known and to call them out. And now, if that does happen, there will be repercussions for teams who break the rules.
Yeah, and I think that's only right and proper, really, Ger. I mean, like, the reason I suppose I wrote the piece on Tuesday was because I just thought everybody was probably getting lumped into the same bracket, and that all inter-county managers were dealing with the current situation in bad faith, which I didn't think to be true. And I think there's the vast majority of people are probably doing it the right way. The vast majority of county boards are trying to approach the whole thing in the right way. It's obviously a very difficult and nuanced kind of situation, but you know, if there were those few, then everybody certainly shouldn't be getting tarnished with the same brush. And the point is, if there is people doing it, or if there was now, and hopefully today will bring a stop to that, that those people should be identified and those counties should be identified, and they should be dealt with as those specific entities, as opposed to an entire group of inter-county managers or inter-county teams, which isn't fair and isn't proper. And again, hopefully today now, I think that you might see the end of that until September.
There is a lot of caricaturing going on when we talk about various factions within the GAA. There is the players' body in the GPA, there is the club players, there are the inter-county managers, and there are county boards. And you could write out a list of the stereotypes that apply to those various groups. The stereotype that applies to the managers are that they're absolutely ruthless, that they don't care about the club game, and that the only thing they're interested in is having a squad that's too big to go training, to run the young lads into the ground and cast them aside when they're used. There's no longevity in that for managers, and certainly that caricature was out there a little bit from some counties, and the rumours doing the rounds that have swept every single GAA WhatsApp group in the country, that there are some county managers who are saying, feck COVID, it's nothing to do with us, and away we go.
Yeah, but look, Jerry, you're around long enough now not to trust anything you see in a WhatsApp group, and rumors like that are spreading around the place. And like, I know plenty of clubs that were back training long before they should have been training, you know, with this pandemic going on. And there's loads of wrongs around the place. But I still think the vast majority of people, you know, Jerry, if you really go and you know, I was looking at your discussion there during the week, and if you go and you really go to the county chairman, or you go to the county managers and ask them straight out and say, are you guys training right now? And apparently that's what happened today in that call with the county chairman, and there was a big discussion about it, and some guys were saying, look, we're not doing it, and we're not going to be doing it in September. We're happy with once everybody toes the same line. And look, I think the GAA had to come out with this today, because now it's after creating as level as a playing field as we possibly can, because county chairman or anybody else aren't going to risk having inter-county teams training if they know that there's a proper sanction, a fine, or possibly whatever, maybe expulsion at an extreme case, you know, from the championship. So they're not going to take that chance, and I think now eventually they've come to the right decision. And look, as everything, this thing has been evolving. Every week has been a big change. So I'm glad they've come to that decision right now.
It does feel a little bit like Michael Dignan's interjection into the whole thing, lit a bit of a touch paper, and people were like, actually, there should be repercussions for this. And so it does become a level playing field. With Roy Gallagher on during the week, and he admitted that in past lives they had made mistakes and they had compromised players and not released them to clubs when they should have done. And there were specific examples of that where a player would be on the bench for the county team, could have played a club league game, and they knew he wasn't going to play for the county team, and they didn't release him back. And he says, like everybody, he's learning, and you can see him becoming a better manager as a result of that. But it was clear as well that he was fully behind letting the players go back and play with the clubs, and that was going to stand them in good stead later on in the year. But what he was concerned about, and what the players were expressing to him, was the fear that they were somehow up against other counties who weren't playing by the same rules. And last week's statement left a little bit of ambivalence, where it didn't really matter if you weren't playing by the same rules.
It did, and that was John Horan when he came out and said that, we don't want you to train before the 14th, but if you do, there isn't really going to be any repercussion. And that was probably an ill thought out statement, obviously. But again, I just think, and I actually watched that with Rory. I thought it was interesting. And I bet you before that, people would have thought that he was probably one of the guys that would be driving fellas to train now and wouldn't care about the clubs. And obviously then being in a position where he's a club manager himself, it just gives him that totally different perspective. And from myself, Ger, from coming from the inglorious, football playing career that I had plenty of time where I would love to have been playing with my club when I wasn't getting enough action with the county. And I understand the importance that the club can play in that kind of a intermediary role, I suppose, between your panel in the championship team or your championship panel or league panel and the importance of playing club games. And I think if you approach the thing the right way, I think we can get the best of both worlds. Guys are going to play their games and be happy and be fresh by the time they come back into us, and totally new, fresh environment where you're going to get a bit of a bounce out of the whole thing again. And I just think it's a win-win from our point of view. But now once you take the paranoia away from it, and you take away the fact that, well, we're not falling behind other teams because they're in the same position as us. Now you're free to do that, and you're free to let guys go with their club and manage them as best you can in that regard. And then when we get back together, that everybody's starting from scratch. And I just think today is a great day for the clubs and the counties, because now everybody knows if you've got something wrong in your county and you're not happy with the access you're getting to players, you go contact GAA and there'll be something done about it.
Yeah, that one bit of the story I haven't quite worked out in my head yet. So it's on the onus. The onus seems to be on club officials to report a county manager. So you can see how that might, be a little bit difficult in certain counties where there are very powerful managers, and you have to report that county manager to the county board, and then the county board has to report that to the GAA centrally, on pain of having their county team kicked out of the championship.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be kicked out of the championship, I'd imagine. The way they'll probably sting you with some kind of big financial penalty or loss of league games next year, which would probably impact on your revenue as well. And at the moment, county boards need every kind of revenue they can find. But as far as I read something where I don't think you had to do it and name, put your name out there and have your club and everything kind of as the whistleblower. There's a certain amount of anonymity that'll probably come with this. And I believe somebody raised the point on the thing. If there's a team training on a field and there's someone living in a house nearby and they video it and they send it to somebody there, that's obviously enough proof. And look, I don't think at this stage, or I would be very confident now, that the threat of this thing and the threat of a real sanction coming down the line, if you're seen to breach the rules, I think that will be enough for every county board chairman to say, hang on, lads, this is not happening. We're all towing the line. We let the guys go to their clubs and we'll manage them physically as best as we can, and we'll get training in September in the middle of a pandemic when we can take as much of this as we can, be really grateful that we're getting games, and we'll be happy with that for our lot this year, Yeah,
totally. And look, I've constantly been chirping on about maybe taking advantage of the time that we've had that has been downtime to consider and try and think about ways that we can make life better for everybody. And that's like right across all facets of life, working from home, people commuting, people exercising more than they've ever done in their lives. We were talking about a little bit earlier on about growing your own vegetables, everything right down to like the state of the game. And in the last week we've seen that sanctions work, the absence of sanctions don't work. And if they wanted to use sanctions to make a club window that wasn't just the month of April, you could do that. And actually most counties would probably really like a very clear delineation. So there are these 3 months when we're going to run our club league and championship, and there are these 3 months when the inter-county team is going to have all of their players available to them. And if you want to run league in the background there, away you go, but you won't have your county players for it. There's definitely a template here for us collectively to use into the future, isn't there?
The big thing is how compact and you can make these seasons an awful lot shorter. Obviously, maybe a week to week thing is a little bit much, but you can certainly compact the whole thing, Ger, and reduce your county, your inter-county scene. You can reduce your club scene a little bit, and you can make the whole thing fit in really nicely. And you're giving people an awful lot more time to go in and enjoy the things that they've probably found now during a pandemic when they haven't been training. They can get out to the golf course, they can go out to their garden, they can go for mountain walks, they can do whatever they want. And you can give people an awful lot of time back. And on the other side of it is the technology. Like, I mean, I would have been, and it's probably, I would have been totally ignorant to the likes of Zoom before this thing. And I suppose a lot of people were before this thing kicked off. And now I'm saying, like, we don't ever have to take guys out of their homes now to come down to O'Moore Park into the Centre of Excellence to do a video session anymore. Like, we can now get fellas to take a half an hour out of their evening and get everybody on Zoom and take your forward group and go through some stuff for 20 minutes and say, okay, lads, off you go, talk to you later. And it's just, you're cutting down, like, that big thing about the amount of time that guys have to spend dedicating their lives to inter-county football. Now we have tools like that we've become accustomed to really just alleviate an awful lot of that time pressure. And we've seen now when the gun has been put to our head that we can make these seasons far more compact than they need to be. And I know there's big arguments about the promotion of the games, and you're leaving bigger windows open for other sports to come in and take that time. But really, if you're worried about the quality of life of these guys, there's a way there to do it,
But those arguments never made any sense to me, really. When you think about it, if you're a sports fan, you're going to like sport, and it turns out if you're a GAA fan, that's your sport. And so you'll find ways, as we have done over the last 6 months, to think about it, talk about it, and engage in it. Like, I know you're an NFL fan. It's the shortest of all of the professional seasons, and everybody talks about NFL all year long because that's the sport they're interested in.
Yeah, and like there's low, like the worst thing in the world to me, Ger, is seeing a situation like we've had numerous years in Kerry where you play a game and you don't have another game for 4 weeks' time. Or even 3 weeks. 3 weeks is probably bearable, but like we should be running this championship off every 2 weeks, and maybe take 3 weeks to a final or something like that. And you're just giving people so much time then on the back end of it where you can go and book your holiday, you can do whatever, and there's just loads of areas that we can improve on, and you would hope that over this time that the people that are, in the positions of power have had that little bit of time to really look at this and reflect on it and say, there's a big, like, there's scope for a huge change in the way that we run our games. And this has given us the opportunity. And the one thing that I really would have loved to have seen, I might have mentioned you before, is it's just, I think this championship would have offered us such a brilliant opportunity to throw 32 names in a hat and start picking them out and just go random and play your open championship and I know it's easy to say that when we're possibly playing Dublin in a provincial semi-final, but I still think we would have added something really special to the championship for this 1 year only in the circumstances that we found ourselves if we went and did that.
No, that would have been class, and we could all have got behind it. One last question, right? Because it does seem like I don't want to keep harping on about it, but if Duignan hadn't said what he said, I don't know if a change would have eventually happened this week, right? Because the outcry would have come from somewhere. But it does seem as if coherent voices with a platform are going to be something that changes the course of the organisation much quicker than a motion to Congress. You are an inter-county manager, you have a column in a national newspaper. Like, do you feel an onus on you to be someone who is feeding the information that you've had and have access to now as somebody who's very clued in the game and getting that out there? Is that in any way part, after all this, are you thinking, actually, you know what, I do have a responsibility to have a voice in this and to express the view of my club mates and what my team are experiencing and what the county board are telling me?
Yeah, like, to be honest, Ger, I was very appreciative of Tony and the lads in the Examiner giving me the opportunity to write a column. It's very unusual for a guy who is a current inter-county manager to write a column of his own expressing maybe the views that I was expressing. But again, I just thought rather than contact somebody else and get them to do it, I'd rather put it in my own words. And I felt strongly that, I thought what we are doing in Laois, is the right approach to the way this situation could be handled. And a longer term view, you're trying to improve the standard of of what's happening in the club, so that eventually that starts to feed into your senior county team. And I think this is an opportunity for every county to go and have that kind of approach and really look at the longer term as opposed to, what's going to happen this September or October. And so whether that's through a newspaper column or whatever it is, but I think if you have some bit of a platform, you have a bit of a voice, and you've got a bit of common sense, which isn't hugely common at the moment, but if you have that, then it's obviously a good way to go and put it out there.
100%, and you're dead right about it. This not being just about this September, it has to be about everything in the future. The one last thing I want to bring up is Rory Gallagher said that it's okay for a club player who plays for his county to want to be as elite as they possibly can be, and I would agree with that. And that is going to be the impetus behind so many of these young players in the women's game, in the men's game, in camogie, that they just want to get better, and they want to train and train and train, and they want good quality coaching, and they want good quality feedback on what they're doing in matches in terms of stats, and they also want it from nutrition, and they want fitness, and they want the best physio, and that's all absolutely fine. We should encourage that. Like, these things can coexist with a very vibrant club scene.
They can, absolutely, and I think that kind of an attitude, and that, elitism sometimes gets this bad rap that, it's all about, money or getting cars or whatever it is. Some guys just want to really max out of their own ability and see how good they can be, and are really kind of driven, intrinsically to be the best that they can be. Like we've got our guys on GPS units, and so now they're training with their clubs, and now they're craving the report that they get to see, what was their max speed, not even how far they ran, because no one cares about that, but all the different, numbers that they can get from our S&C guy, they're looking for that all the time. So they're still in their club environment, and they're training as hard as they can with them, but yet they're craving that extra information because they want to know, are they at the level that they were at before? And that's not something that's been driven by us, or by, that's coming from them. And you're going to have that everywhere, Ger. Guys are going to want to be as good as they can possibly be. And I still think that there's a really strong possibility that we can put a structure together for those people to coexist with the guys that, some guys want to show up on a Friday and play a Junior C game and have a crack and have the camaraderie, and that's great. And then you want guys to take the club stuff serious, but we still also have to cater for those fellas who are just absolutely nuts about being as good as they can be at the intercounty, and test them out at that level.
And that's in human nature. That's why Fitbit is a billion-dollar company. That's why Strava exists. That's why every club golfer wants to know, can I hit the ball an extra 5 yards? It's like we're all competitive beasts. So look, you said it very well earlier. It's a great day for clubs and for players all around the country, that they know that they're all going to be on a level playing field. And all it took was a sanction. And look, nobody wants this to be a draconian disciplinarian situation where this ends up in court for one county being kicked out. But like, at least make sure that everybody understands it's a level playing field.
Yeah, I think the threat of it will do fine. I don't think in the current climate, there's very few counties out there that are flush with cash right now. Everybody's tightening their belt, and the last thing that any county wants to see is a really hefty fine coming down the track and a loss of a home game next year. And I think that's enough to put manners on anybody that was breaching it. And again, I don't know whether they were or they weren't, but hopefully it'll be done and dusted by now.
There's going to be a lot of Zapruder films from around the country of various. Is that what's the date on that? How can we verify that?
Yeah. I doubt it. I think it'll be fine. I don't think you're going to see it. Like, I would love to know, man, with all the talk, I would love to know how many counties were actually collectively getting together and training. And I just, like, I know I'm down here in Kerry, and I can tell you that they were not training. I certainly know the guys in Laois weren't training. Like, there's loads of counties that weren't doing it. And I'd love to know, if people do know, then you should have just stood up and said, listen, it's this county, it's that county, and stop talking about everybody in a monolith. Yeah, look, we've got footage of a couple of counties, but I wonder, is there a statute of limitations there? Is today the day, and from this point forwards, that's when the sanctions actually arrive. So we'll see. But look, it's great to have you on, Mike. Thanks very much for joining us. That's Mike Quirke there, the Laois manager, who has kind of been a thought leader on this the whole way along. I just want to tell you this as well. So we ran a poll on otbsports.com over the last 24 hours asking about what the sanction should be and what would a fair sanction be. It turns out our readers are fairly hardcore. 67%, just enough to squeak through the 2/3 majority of Congress. Teams should be kicked out. Straight out, just kick them out. That was what 67%. 23% said that punishment was too harsh, and 9 out of 10 suggested a couple of 9 to 10% suggested a couple of alternative sanctions, such as making teams start their first championship with a points deficit, so -2 points. I'm not sure that would work, though, if you were one of the superpowers
and you win games by the average spread of 10 to 18 points. If you're minus 2 points, is going to be much of an issue for you. So, but if anybody out there has any footage you want to share with us, WhatsApp us. 087 9180 180 is the number. This is Friday night off the ball. It's Ger Gilroy here with you. If you've got any comments for us, that WhatsApp number 087 9180 180 is the one to get in touch with.